Good morning, and welcome back to Supernaturalist, the podcast where we dig into the monsters, myths, legends, and the chaos behind supernatural. Today we're talking about Season 3, Episode 8, A Very Supernatural Christmas. And listen, this episode has pretty much everything. It's got childhood trauma, tacky gas station gifts, awkward caroling, pagan gods, human sacrifice, and the most terrifying chimney scene since forever. This is one of those episodes that feels kind of funny and horrifying at the same time, which is basically supernatural at its best. It gives us a Christmas story, but not the cozy Hallmark kind. This is the Winchester version, which means somebody's getting dragged up a chimney and there's probably blood in the fireplace or something worse. So let's talk about the creatures of this episode. Because at first, Sam and Dean think they may be hunting an evil Santa. But what they actually find is older, darker, and a whole lot more disturbing. So this episode opens 1 year earlier in Seattle, Washington. Grandfather comes to visit his grandson at Christmas, and later that night, he dresses up as Santa and starts putting presents under the tree. He knows his grandson is peeking through the banisters, so he's clearly trying to create one of those magical childhood Christmas memories. Except this is supernatural, and instead of cookies and reindeer, we get a nightmare. He hears a noise, Grandpa does, and it's on the roof, and he goes to check the fireplace. Then, while his grandson watches in horror, he's yanked up the chimney. And really, the only thing left behind is his bloody foot falling into the fireplace. Yo, Merry Christmas, everybody! Right away, the episode is playing with one of the creepiest ideas imaginable. What if the thing coming down the chimney isn't Santa? What if it's something goes back up the chimney with you? That's horrific. So, in the present day, Sam and Dean are in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and they're pretending to be FBI agents, which is typical for them, and they're investigating the disappearance of Mr. Walsh. His wife doesn't have much to offer them, but the fireplace does. The boys find a bloody tooth. Also, ew. That's when Sam starts thinking they might be dealing with some version of an evil Santa. And this is where the episode opens the door to all kinds of Christmas folklore. Because Santa Claus has a darker shadow and a lot of legends in the past. Or from the past. Sam mentions beings like Krampus, the horned Christmas creature known for punishing naughty children. And in many traditions, Christmas it's not just about reward, it's also about punishment. Be good, you get presents. Be bad, and something terrifying might come for you. Naturally, Dean isn't thrilled with the idea of evil Santa, but he's very willing to investigate anything that involves a creepy holiday monster. Their first lead is Santa's village, because both missing men had visited before they disappeared. And that's where the boys find their first suspect. They find drunk Santa. At Santa's village, Sam and Dean focus on the man playing Father Christmas. He walks with a limp and smells like candy, or like Ripple. Those details line up with some of the evil Santa lore Sam has found. So that night, the boys stake out his trailer. And this scene is so painfully funny because the show builds all this tension. Sam and Dean hear a scream. They burst inside, armed, and they're ready to go at it. And what do they find? Not a monster. Just a drunk, high Santa watching porn with a bong and a bottle of liquor. To cover themselves for breaking into the man's house, they pretend they're carolers and sing the worst version of Silent Night ever committed. Like, it's an atrocity. It's awkward, it's ridiculous, but it's perfect. And while they're chasing the wrong Santa, another man is taken. And again, he's pulled up the chimney in a sack. So now they know they're not dealing with some random guy in a costume. Something is using Christmas imagery, but the source is a lot older than the mall Santa routine. The next day, Sam notices something important, and it doesn't seem that important to begin with, but it is. And that is the latest victim's family has the same unusual wreath hanging over their fireplace that he saw in the Walsh house. That wreath becomes the real clue in this. And Sam identifies the plant as meadowsweet, and it's an herb connected in the episode to pagan rites and human sacrifice. So here we go. The idea that this herb helps summon gods to receive an offering, that's where we stand now. And that changes the entire case. They're not hunting an evil Santa, they're hunting pagan gods. Specifically, gods connected to the winter solstice, the older seasonal celebration before the Christmas traditions. And this is where the episode gets really interesting. The monster isn't just wearing the mask of Christmas, it's feeding off the history that came before Christmas. It's the old world hiding under the new one. The wreaths weren't decorations, and they weren't meant to be. They were meant to be invitations. They mark the houses, which helps choose the victims. They turn warm, cozy Christmas spaces into sacrifice sites. That's the real horror of this episode. It takes the safest holiday images, fireplaces, wreaths, presents, Santa suits, and it turns them into traps, horrifying traps. So, Sam and Dean's investigation eventually leads them to Madge and Edward Kerrigan, who look like the perfect suburban couple in a Christmas Hallmark movie. They're cheerful, they're polite, they have that sugary, over the top holiday energy that feels almost aggressive. You know, the people who make Christmas cookies and somehow also seem like they might report you to the HOA for breathing wrong. Those kind of people. But their sweetness is actually the mask. The Kerrigans were also in Seattle the year before when the three men disappeared. That links them directly to the earlier attacks at this point. And Bobby confirms that if they're pagan gods, they can be killed with stakes made from evergreen wood. Perfect scenario. Christmas trees are made of evergreen. This detail is so good because it makes the Christmas setting part of the weapon. The thing used to decorate the holiday becomes the thing that can kill the monsters. When Sam and Dean return to the Kerrigan house, they find the truth in their basement. Human remains. Ugh. And the latest victim. He's still alive and trapped inside the sack. When, out of nowhere, Madge and Edward attack. The sweet Christmas couple drops the act, and suddenly we see what they really are. The weird thing is they still keep up that facade of the sweet couple. They reveal that they're pagan gods who've had to adapt since the rise of Christianity. They're not real happy with the man in sandals, we should say. They used to be worshipped. They used to have followers. They used to receive sacrifices openly at all times. But times have changed, so they learn to blend in. Instead of temples and public rituals, they move into suburbia. Instead of demanding worship from entire communities, they quietly take a few victims each year. That makes them really creepy. They're not wild monsters living in the woods. They're not hiding in caves. They're living in nice houses, making wreaths, smiling at neighbors, playing bridge, and choosing people to butcher during the holidays. They've turned survival into performance, and no one is the wiser except Sam and Dean. And the performance is Christmas cheer. The Kerrigans are fascinating because they don't see themselves as evil in a modern human way. They see themselves as old gods doing what old gods have always done. In their minds, the sacrifices are tradition, they're necessary, or maybe even deserved. Who knows? That's how they see themselves. That's a very supernatural kind of monster. Ancient, hungry, and offended that humanity moved on. So Sam and Dean wake up tied to chairs in the Kerrigan's kitchen, or mostly dining room. And this scene is one of the most disturbing in the episode because it's staged like a holiday baking moment. There's pies and candies and cakes and all kinds of things all over the table. But it's gone completely wrong. Madge and Edward are still cheerful, fake happy family while preparing to sacrifice them. They take blood from Sam and Dean, they pull out one of Sam's fingernails, ew. Then they're about to extract one of Dean's teeth. And all the while, Dean's getting angry. Of course he is. And he starts cursing, and she says to him, "Well, you know what I do when I want to say something bad? I say fudge." And as a Supernatural fan, you know exactly what Dean says. So I'm not going to say it, but you know. And again, the episode uses something familiar and domestic, a warm dining room with lots of cakes and candies, sweet older couple at appearance, holiday decorations, and they turn it horrifying. That's what Supernatural does. And the ritual itself is intimate and gross. I mean, pulling fingernails out and teeth. It's not a big dramatic altar in the woods, and it's not cloaks and chanting under the moon. It's torture in a suburban dining room. The Kerrigans are interrupted by a neighbor at the door, and that tiny, normal moment gives Sam and Dean just enough time to escape. Then we get the fight, and the boys kill Madge and Edward with stakes made from the branches of a Christmas tree. And before she dies, Madge says, "I loved that tree." Honestly, that's one of the most Winchester things ever. They literally weaponize Christmas. So, why does this creature work so well? Well, in A Very Supernatural Christmas, it works because they hit three different fears at once. There's the childhood fear, the idea that something from your childhood can come through the chimney into your home while you're sleeping, and it's horrifying. Santa is supposed to be magical and safe. This episode turns that into a nightmare. Second, there's the religious and mythological fear. This episode reminds us that the holidays are layered. Christmas as we know it sits on top of older traditions. Whether you believe that or not, it's true. Older traditions and older gods. In the supernatural universe, these old gods didn't disappear, they just got quiet. Third, there's a suburban fear. Madge and Edward aren't obviously monstrous. They don't look that way on the outside. They look harmless. They look like people you'd buy a wreath from, and that makes them kind of worse. The monster isn't outside the holiday, it's right inside of it. And this episode also works because the monster story mirrors the emotional story. In the flashback to 1991, young Sam and Dean are alone in a motel room in Broken Bow, Nebraska, waiting for John to come back after a hunt. Sam is still young enough to want Christmas to be normal. Dean is already old enough to know that it won't be. When Sam reads John's journal and realizes monsters are actually real, he loses another piece of his childhood innocence. And that's sad for him. And Dean tries to protect him, but he can't protect him from the truth. And then we see Dean trying to create Christmas for Sam anyway. He steals presents from a house down the street and pretends John bought them in the middle of the night. It's kind of heartbreaking because it's so Dean. He doesn't have the power to fix their life, but he'll do anything to give Sammy one good moment in life. And then Sam gives Dean the amulet meant for John. That amulet becomes one of the most important symbols of their relationship and in the show itself. In the present, Dean wants Christmas because he thinks it'll be his last one. Because, as we know, he's, pushing on that demon deal. Sam refuses at first because he can't bear the thought of losing his brother. But by the end, Sam decorates the motel room. He makes eggnog, which is really bad and too much alcohol. They exchange cheap gas station gifts. Dean gives Sam porn magazines and shaving cream, and Sam gives Dean oil for the Impala and a candy bar. It's silly and small and kind of devastating. But the episode gives us monstrous Christmas and Winchester Christmas side by side. One is about sacrifice taken by force, and the other is about love given when there's almost nothing left to give. So let's break down the monsters. The creature type are pagan gods connected to the winter solstice. The human identities are Madge and Edward Kerrigan. Their hunting pattern is that they move from place to place and blend into society and take a few human victims every year. Their method for doing that is they use meadowsweet wreaths to mark or summon victims for sacrifice. And then their attack style is they take their victims through the chimney, often in a sack, and create the illusion of an evil Santa figure. Their weakness is evergreen wood, and the death is Sam and Dean kill them with stakes made from Christmas trees. And why they're memorable? They combine pagan sacrifice, Christmas folklore, and suburban politeness into one deeply unsettling package. Here are a few fun facts and behind the scenes details about A Very Supernatural Christmas. First, the episode originally aired on December 13th, 2007, and it was written by Jeremy Carver and directed by J. Miller Tobin. Eric Kripke reportedly wanted the episode to feel like the most violent Christmas special in television history, which honestly sounds exactly like what the episode is trying to be. The anti-Claus idea helped inspire the story, but the writers didn't want to fully confirm an evil Santa because that would also imply the real Santa existed in the show's universe. So they basically leaned into an older pagan god lore instead. And the episode's opening special presentation style was inspired by old CBS holiday presentation graphics from the 80s. And if you're Gen X, you know all about it. It's burned into your memory. Kripke wanted that traditional Christmas special feeling, which makes the horror even funnier and darker by contrast. And production leaned hard into Christmas visuals. The Kerrigan house was designed with warm, festive tones to contrast with Sam and Dean's colder, dingier motel room. The costumes also helped sell the creepy cheerfulness of Madge and Edward, especially their campy holiday sweaters. There was also reportedly an unused visual effect idea after Madge's death, where Edward would reveal a more literal godlike tree creature form, looking wooden and gnarled. The effect was ultimately considered too obvious and it wasn't used. So, and on the lore note, the episode treats meadowsweet as rare and extremely powerful in pagan ritual, though outside the show, meadowsweet is actually a real plant found in parts of Europe and Asia. And from what I understand, it actually does smell very good. In closing, A Very Supernatural Christmas is such a good episode because it's funny and it's gross, it's emotional and genuinely creepy all at once. The creatures are scary, but the real heart of the episode is Sam and Dean trying to hold on to something normal in a life that has never given them much normal at all. Imagine Edward turned Christmas into a ritual of blood and sacrifice. Again, ew. Sam and Dean turn it back into something human. Good. A sad little motel room, a tiny tree, bad eggnog, cheap presents, and football on TV. And somehow that's enough. So that's it for today's episode of Supernaturalist. Until next time, keep the salt close, watch the chimney, and maybe think twice before accepting a wreath from a too perfect couple down the street. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment, and share this episode with other supernatural lovers. Thanks again, and have a great weekend.